Hey everyone, this is Jeff Norris, the 2024 Alabama Teacher of the Year. I'm on a mission to amplify education in the state of Alabama and celebrate the power of specific teaching strategies and initiatives. As I travel around the state, visit teachers' classrooms, and meet new people with innovative ideas, I want to share these moments with you so we can all celebrate and grow better together. Education is my passion, and I want you to realize and embrace the opportunities we have to change lives each and every day. This is the power of a moment. All right, everybody, I'm so excited about this episode. This is Jeff Norris, Alabama's 2024 Teacher of the Year. For several reasons, this episode is really exciting. Number one, I'm just super excited about the topic. Today, we're going to talk about the power of feedback, which is our first kind of content topic that I'm super excited for us to get into. It's one that I'm passionate about, but also our guest today is really excited to talk about this. Which brings me to my second reason this episode is so awesome is because we are inviting one of my favorite people for our fourth episode, The Power of Feedback. And we are inviting, without further ado, this is our guest for the day is Kevin Pughsley. And I always mess up your name, Pughsley. That's right.
Yeah.
That's good, right? Okay, so Kevin is a sixth grade teacher in Hoover, and I didn't give him too much information about you, Kevin, but Kevin and I met a few months ago in this just crazy journey we've been on through this Alabama Teacher of the Year program. So Kevin is Alabama's secondary Teacher of the Year, and we're both sixth grade teachers, which is kind of interesting, but he's our secondary Teacher of the Year, and I'm actually the elementary Teacher of the Year. So this it's a neat episode because we're going to come at it from different angles. But Kevin and I met, and what we learned about each other very quickly is that we have a lot of the same interests and same teaching strategies and teaching styles and just passions about teaching. We have some of the core beliefs are really similar to each other, and it's like we kind of knew each other the minute we met each other. It just felt like I think we knew people that connected with each other, Kevin, and maybe that's why. But somehow it just felt like we were kindred spirits for a variety of reasons. And so I just want to take a few minutes. So we're going to talk about the power of feedback. Before we get there, I love your story and I love hearing it when you talk about, why you became a teacher in the first place. So I'd love to, just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us how you became a teacher.
So Jeff, thank you so much. It is an honor to be on your podcast, and it's an honor just through this whole Teacher of the Year experience, just to get to know you more and realize that even without meeting each other, how much we actually had in common. And kind of like middle school teachers, like being Teachers of the Year this year was really, really awesome. So I was glad to see that taking place. But thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I'll just tell you a little bit more about who I am and why I got into teaching. So my name is Kevin Pughsley. I graduated from Stanford University. I've been teaching for 17 years. I taught 10 years previously in Calera. And then I moved to Berry Middle School, and I've been teaching here now where I'm currently at. I love earth science. That's what I teach. That's my jam. I've been teaching it, like I said, for 17 years. But I think one of the questions we always get asked when we're a teacher is, why did you become a teacher? It's like this almost, if you're going to ask a teacher anything, why did you become a teacher is the common question that's asked amongst everybody. And usually when I'm asked that, they're like, well, what grade do you teach? And I'm like, I teach sixth grade. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, don't be sorry. I love my sixth graders. Some of them think they're grown and some of them are still little babies, but that's okay. I love each and every one of them. But the reason I became a teacher, it kind of goes back to me as a student growing up. Me as a student, I struggled as a student. Pretty much C's, D's, and B's were what I got on my report card. A was not anything there unless it was PE, or I got a note from the teacher saying, I need you to see me to take a retake test. And those were pretty much the times that I got an A. But the sad part of that, too, is I was kind of that kid that either caused trouble in your classroom or was overlooked because I was passing. And it wasn't until 12th grade that I saw education in a different way because of two teachers. That was Coach Collop and Miss Mack. And I know that when we all think about our favorite teachers, we think, and those people come to mind, and we think about what it is that they impacted us. Mm-hmm. And those teachers, they show me that learning can be engaging. It can be exciting. At the same time, you can build relationships before you start on content. And those teachers showed me a different side of education that no one had showed me before. And I realized from that moment, because I was successful, I didn't make an A in those classes, like I said, But because I was successful and I enjoyed coming to class every day, I realized that there's probably a lot of students out there like me, and I want to get into teaching to be able to make a difference.
I love that. And what's funny is our past couple of episodes have been about the power of community, the power of words. I don't know if you're familiar. So that we call this the power of a moment, but every time we meet, I change this last word. And so we kind of built like exactly what you're saying. We built with relationships and community first. And then now I was telling the people earlier, like feedback is our first kind of like content driven episode. So you're kind of like, we're going to like put all of these, the kind of like emotional side of teaching, kind of like the beliefs, like why we do what we do. And now this episode, really, we're going to kind of like, how do we put those into action? So I love that. I think that's awesome. And I do think everybody you ask any teacher, like why they became a teacher, and they always list a mentor in their life or a teacher that influenced them. And I love that impact. It's like this reciprocity that keeps going. It's I say the once a Norris kid, always a Norris kid. And so like it's this, kind of ongoing, everlasting impact that teachers have. And not every profession gets to say that,
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so let's talk feedback. So I ask everybody, when they're coming on the podcast, like, what is a word that sticks out to you? And you and I had kind of talked about this before, and you had said, I've been giving this presentation, it's on feedback, and I heard it, and I was kind of like, I don't know, like, that's like saying assessment to teachers, and it's kind of like it turns people off when you hear that word. So, and it did. Like I'm guilty of that too. So I heard it and I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, can we find something that's a little bit more exciting or something that people are going to hear? And then you and I talked about it for a few minutes, and I was like, oh, this is so good. Like, there's so much good meaning behind it, and the conversation's rich, and it just impacts everything that we do. And so I want people to not be scared by the word feedback when they hear this. Right now I'm telling you up front, like, this is such an approachable, like, constructive conversation that I think you present it in such a way that it's not scary, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm excited to learn from you as well. I know the listeners are going to want to hear some amazing things that you have to say about it and what you've learned about it. And so we do have Kevin has a slideshow that he has kind of used, and so we're gonna try, y'all. This is my first time. We're gonna try to add this up here, and we're gonna look. Let's do it like this, so we can kind of see some of these definitions and things. I think it helps for people who are watching. You can kind of see some of his words of wisdom and some of these questions. If you are just listening in, we're going to do a great job of reading some of this to you and making sure you stay with us too. But let's just start off with this definition of feedback. So, and I would totally agree with this. So, information about reactions to a product, a person's performance of a task, which is used for a basis for improvement. So we're looking at information you get from performance or a task or something you've done, and then using that for improvement. So I think that's a great way to start off this conversation. Is there something about this that just spoke to you, or why feedback? Like where did that come from?
Well, I feel like usually what a teacher's passionate about all goes back to the name of your podcast, The Power of a Moment.
Yeah.
And while I was at Stanford University, I had a lot of great, amazing clinical experiences. But one of my specific clinical experiences was in an exceptional education classroom where I'd prepared, I'd had this lesson ready to go. A professor was coming to watch me teach. And so, you're a little bit more raised, your nerves are going because of that happening. And my usual routine was go to a room, practice it the night before, because I live by what I call the 5 Ps: prior preparation prevents poor performance.
That's good.
So here I go to Edgewood Elementary School, and I go into that classroom, I start teaching, and I get to that first part where the kids are going to answer that first formative assessment question. And then when they answer it, it's completely wrong. And I tried to save it, and I did everything I could to save it, like a good teacher tries to, and it just kept going downhill. It completely bombed. And I knew it wasn't like, I thought it was going to be a good lesson. It just turned out not to be. And so when we went to sit down and debrief and talk and get feedback on how it goes, we've all been kind of trained that, okay, the whole compliment sandwich, start with a positive, negative, end with a positive. Well, this went completely different. They asked me, like, how did you feel it went? And I was hard on myself. I was like, I thought it was going to go this way. It didn't. I prepared and it just went downhill. Maybe next time I could do this. And then they say, well, here's what I think. I don't think you should ever be a teacher because you'll never be good at it. And it was at the moment that I heard that, and I kind of told you my story of struggling as a student. I went back to those 11 years before 12th grade of here I am again, underperforming, someone telling me I'm not good enough, I can't do it. And if our feedback is only based on I'm looking at you as a person and the current thing that I saw happening, then we're looking at feedback the wrong way. We need to look at it as I need to hit the positives, tell you how you can improve, how you can grow, help you to know that, hey, as I give you this feedback, I want to help you. I don't want to hurt you with this. So that way it takes down that barrier before you get anything. So part of the reason feedback became important to me is because before I even became a teacher, I had to make a decision on whether to, I try to put it in this way of I can either be inclined or declined. And I want to be inclined. I don't want to look at what someone's telling me I'm not. I want to look at where I'm going and I'm moving forward. And as science teachers, they get it. Like we're inclined, we're moving, we're not moving back. And so I wanted to make sure that that was clear, that I hear what you're saying, but I know what Coach Collop and I know what Miss Mack told me and they taught me. And I want to move forward because this is something that's important going forward when it comes to feedback. I don't feel like our students are really taught how to give feedback. We don't spend time teaching constructive criticism. We don't spend time telling our students how to provide that to other students in a helpful, not hurtful way. And it became very important to me to get that. And once I got into education and saw where feedback was coming from and our administrator observations, and I realized that students' feedback is a powerful tool.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where feedback became so important to me, is being told that I should never be a teacher.
Well, I love that. I mean, I think there's so much in what you just said. And some of the things I'm thinking, like just the power of growth, like growing from feedback. And you mentioned that, like the incline. I love the incline. That's an awesome visual for kids too. Like that's what our goal is with any kind of feedback. That should be the goal, right? I don't know that that's necessarily the goal for the person giving you that feedback as a professor, like, and how different I believe in the power of words. I believe, speaking life into people transforms people. I believe you can devastate people with your words. And so it's number one, inspiring that you didn't take that to heart, but also like you used it kind of to urge you on. So in effect, like the feedback actually worked well, like it actually, cost you. There we go. See, we put a positive spin on it. And I think though, I do think of like a real life example. I don't know how much you follow Deion Sanders and Coach Prime. And so like I've seen some of these interviews with him recently, like he is tough on his players. He's tough on himself. He's tough on his like personal children. Like he's really tough on them. And that like he even says, we want to get better. We want to be the best we can be. So like you need but he comes from this kind of culture of love first. And then because you have this basis of a relationship, like you mentioned, then you can be tough on people. And so I'm sure we'll probably get into this a little bit later, but I think it's important for us to tell people, find that common ground that you have with someone first, whether it is an administrator that's observing you and giving you feedback, whether it's your kids. Like having this safe environment is so important for receiving and giving feedback. So I think that's why it's so scary for people. Like, I hear feedback and I feel pretty confident in my teaching abilities. But then when I hear that someone's coming to observe, or I hear, we've got these instructional rounds coming, like it just sends off these little, the antenna go up and you're like, it just creates this anxiety, which is so bizarre of a feeling because as teachers, like we thrive in our classroom environments, but as soon as you just change one little thing or that it's like our kids, like one thing makes you uncomfortable, and it's really hard to move past that. So I love that, just in general, like putting a positive spin on feedback is so important. And I think we'll get to more of that, as we go through this presentation. And as you talk through this, I think you have so much to say about, using feedback in a really positive way. And it speaks to like your past experiences with it. But I think that's important. Like we know that with kids too. So like hearing your story, like I always tell teachers, this is a Joe Sanfilippo quote. He says, every interaction matters because every interaction could be the one they talk about the rest of their lives. And like literally, like you're a living example of that. Like you had this one interaction and it's a lasting interaction. And just the impact of our words and our actions and feedback. But I think it's so important for me to realize that as a teacher giving feedback as well, like it matters. Stuff matters, So anyway, that's an aside. All right, so let's talk. So here's feedback. Here's why we kind of enjoy it and like it as a word. It's important for progress and growth. And with that kind of mindset, we're moving towards growth. Let's just talk about like practical ways. I'm just thinking maybe student feedback. And then you mentioned this in your presentation, like student to student feedback, and then also like how can teachers use feedback to drive their instruction. So I'll let you just kind of take it away. And I'm going to interrupt you, I'm sure, because I always have stuff to say and questions to ask. But I just want to hear a little bit. Tell us a little bit about, just how you use feedback in your classroom or how you've seen it used.
So like I said, when I first started going down this, I realized how important feedback was. I was watching my administrators come in and observe me teaching maybe 1 to 3 times a year. And I was like, wait, what's kind of going on here? Like, I want to grow as a teacher. I want to improve because I realize how important feedback is. But where can I get that feedback? And I realized very quickly that I'm there 180 days of the year. And when usually an administrator comes in, as teachers, we got to kind of, I flipped the switch and here's the show that goes on. And I think it's natural for that to kind of happen. But also, our students are the ones that see us. And then when the administrator leaves, like, that was kind of fun. Can we keep doing that? And it's like, well, wait, I need to be getting feedback from y'all because that's going to be much more meaningful because you see me in my good days. But you also see me in my bad days too. And the days where I struggle. And I quickly realized that the fear that teachers have when it comes to getting feedback, and you were already mentioning it earlier, in the fact that, oh my goodness, what is this person going to say? Are they going to say I'm inadequate? And that is far from it. And what we have to do as teachers, we have to teach our students how to give that feedback. Because a lot of them haven't learned how to give constructive feedback. A lot of them are under the mentality of, you hurt me, I hurt you. And that does not need to be the mentality going forward. So what I teach my students from day one, and I love how you said earlier, I tell my students all the time from the first day of school, I love you, I care about you.
Yeah.
I am your teacher and I have high expectations. And I'm going to challenge you this year. And because I love you, because I care about you, when you don't meet those expectations and I challenge you and you start to want to quit or give up and not persevere, I'm going to push you because I love you, because I care about you. And I tell my students, we also need to have that same attitude in my classroom when we're working with each other, because we can learn from each other, but we need to learn how to give feedback to each other in a helpful way, not a hurtful. So I call it H&H with my students.
I love that. Yeah. Help, not hurt.
And that way it's a quick little reference in my classroom, like, hey, remember H&H. And they're like, oh yeah, help, not hurt. So before they give any feedback to each other, whenever we work in groups and they're going to review a CER writing and they're going to tell them, hey, here's what I thought on this. They say, hey, remember, this is to help you, not to hurt you. And I feel like there's this wall. And if we would just start off whenever we give someone feedback and saying, hey, remember, I'm here to help you, not to hurt you, it almost tears down that wall immediately. And I'm more likely to receive the feedback that you're giving me. And I model that for my students, but I also have them model that for each other. And when you're first teaching this, it can be very difficult. And that's why, like, I have sentence starters out on my students' desk. They can see, hey, here's some safe ways to ask questions rather than saying, oh, well, this is wrong. You need to do this. Can you help me with this one? So if you see something that you think is inaccurate, be like, hey, can you help me understand why you put this down? Teaching students how to approach maybe that uncomfortable moment because they've never done it before. And I think that's where this becomes so important, because it opens the door where you're teaching your students to do it in the classroom. But then when you give them the feedback survey, you remind them, hey, remember, I want to get better as your teacher so that we can have a great year. So provide me helpful feedback in a helpful way, not a hurtful way. So as you write down your response, make sure you reread it and ask yourself, if Mr. Pughsley is reading this, is he reading it in a helpful way, or is he going to read it and think that it's hurtful? And you'd be surprised at how the students respond and how quickly they pick up on it. And the conversations are so much better, so much deeper, and they're more willing to hear someone else's point of view now because it's being done in an H&H way.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'm gonna steal that too. So I tell people I've got this sign in my room. It talks about the difference in a critic and a critical friend. But I love the H and H. Like we talk about a lot. Like a critic is looking for your flaws. A critic is seeking to harm you. A critic wants you to be lower than them. Like that's their goal. A critical friend is looking to make you better, help you grow. They're like pointing out errors you make, but in a way, like you said, a helpful way. And it is like we hear so many stories, like I know you do too, like from parents who are like uh, kids who give up, like the lack of resilience in kids these days is what I hear a lot from parents. And I'm like, well, part of it is because they don't know how to accept criticism, so they shut down. So like it's just this, and again, it's funny because I model it as a teacher. I feel like I do a great job, like really teaching growth mindset to my kids and like doing it, but then I'm the same way. Like I get the one piece of negative feedback and it's like devastating sometimes. And so not having that relationship or that base or that common um, goal, like you said, like even just having the common goal would be helpful to know, hey, we're both in this together to make each other better. And I will accept that feedback in a better way. And I do think that's helpful to kids. That is like helpful to a growth mindset. That's helpful for the future. Like you're setting them up in what you're doing in your sixth grade science classroom. Like that's helping them in math to get feedback. That's helping them in life when they get feedback from people. Like, and they're able to separate people who are there to genuinely help them out with people who are genuinely there just to bring them down. And so I think, that's helpful moving forward as well. So I love that for so many reasons. I do think those sentence starters are excellent. That's something I do too. So teachers who are listening, like I tell people all the time when I'm presenting too, Kevin, I'm like you have to teach kids how to talk to each other. Like especially at the secondary level, this is something like you walk into a kindergarten classroom. I don't know how recently you've been in a kindergarten classroom, but you go in, like I love to go visit kindergarten classrooms and I love to leave kindergarten classrooms about 15 minutes later. But while I'm in kindergarten classrooms, it's amazing to see these teachers who have like these routines that they've created with their kids. They have their peanut butter and jelly partners, and they're, when they turn and talk, they have very purposeful turn and talk, and they have these stems and they have procedures for everything. And then we get to the secondary world, and I think we assume that kids know how to do certain things, like talk to each other or give feedback. Like we're like, oh, they know how to do that. Like y'all just talk to each other for a couple minutes and give each other, some goals for the future. And they don't. I mean, they really don't know how to talk to each other.
And I'll add this, Jeff.
Yeah.
I feel like sixth grade is where we see that biggest gap.
Maybe you're right. Yeah.
Coming from elementary to middle school. And when they get to middle school, we have that, I don't know, this assumption that they're coming to us with all these skills. And then we quickly realize, okay, they don't have some of these skills that we thought they did have. And then we have to realize that we have to model a lot of those things. Like our elementary teachers are doing a great job, just like you were saying. They're doing a great job of teaching a lot of those partnering skills, those higher order thinking, teaching those STEM. But when the kids get to us, and you were mentioning when you see it, we have that misconception that, oh, they already know how to do this. And it sometimes kind of catches us off guard.
Yeah, I love that. So, okay. So we've talked kind of like kid to kid, and you even mentioned the survey. So like I've heard of this survey. Like I've heard teachers even tell me that you've told them about this survey, and some teachers who've actually implemented it. So you have this, we're going to kind of skip forward. So you have these 5 questions. Like this is kind of like your like it's not really a platform. I feel like we're Miss America sometimes. Like this is our platform, but it is like it's something that you just have seen like have powerful payoff when you talk to people and when you present this to teachers. And so I definitely want to give you a few minutes just to kind of like talk through these 5 questions, kind of talk about, this survey in general, and then maybe specifically about a couple of these questions we can kind of talk about and go from there.
Yeah. So the 5 questions, obviously derived from my experience when I was told I shouldn't be a teacher, but also seeing what feedback looked like in schools for teachers, and that we needed to be able to get more purposeful, meaningful feedback on our classroom environment, our effectiveness as a teacher. And I feel like as teachers, we want that, but a lot of times we get caught up in, I have to cover an extra class. I can't get someone to come in and watch me, but our students are there. And I've called this before the iceberg effect, where we tend to think that the top of the iceberg is what everybody's all about,
Here it
right?
is, yeah.
They're
Yeah.
looking at it. And that's kind of like our administrator observation. We're in all about the top observation that we just got. But in reality, the 90% of the iceberg, which is the meat of everything, is our students. And why are we not tapping into the kids who see us every day, who this generation of kids wants to provide feedback to their teachers? This is our like TikTok. They're watching videos. They want to be able to tell you how you're doing. And trust me, I know the fear. The fear is automatically, they're going to say something mean. They're going to say something like this. It's going to hurt my feelings. But if you teach them to do it in a H&H way, a helpful, not hurtful way, you will be amazed at the feedback that you get. And so it comes down to 5 questions.
Okay.
And the first question is, do you feel I care about you? Because this gets back to relationships. What made a difference for me as a student was the teacher took the time to build a relationship with me first. And so it's a quick little easy 1 to 5 scale where always or rarely. And you can see whether the students do feel like you love them, you care about them as a person first before the content.
And all of that's question 1. That has to be question 1, right? Yeah, I love that.
It has to be question 1 because that's the first part of where you should be connecting with your students. And we all know that if you don't, the opposite's true, because I was that kid. If you didn't care about me, then I was going to care about making sure I caused some trouble in your class. And unfortunately, that's true for some of our students who are hurting, is their way of communicating that they're hurting is by causing maybe some classroom behavior in our class.
Yeah, I love that. All right, question 2.
Did I teach in a way you could learn? When you teach in your classroom, are you being effective in the ways that you're doing that? With the labs, the activities that you're doing, the formative assessments, the summative assessments, how you're assessing your students to see if it's effective. Your students will be able to tell you whether you're being effective, whether they enjoy coming to your class, whether they're getting a lot out of it. And once again, it's the same 1 to 5 scale, but it's not something that an administrator is going to see in 1 to 3 visits in your classroom. It is something that the students in your classroom who are there all the time will be able to see it and tell you. And look, we all got into teaching not for the pay. I can tell you that. It's not for having a whole summer off, because if you're a teacher, you know you don't have the summer off. You got in here because you want to make a difference. And if we're truly wanting to make a difference, we need to be getting feedback that helps us grow and see if we're being effective in our class.
When I hear teachers say, you may hear this too, they'll say, they'll get back results on a test from a student, or they'll get, an assessment, and they'll be like, I taught it to them. Like, I know I taught it well. I know I taught it to them. But I love this question because it does. It can be very enlightening. I think you're right. Like, we have to be, again, open to this suggestion, like, hey, maybe I didn't do it the best way. And I think we do the best with what we know, we do the best we can with what we know, and, know better, do better. But I think you can be the best teacher and have the most knowledge and still not be teaching in an effective way for kids to learn. And I think that is a tough pill to swallow sometimes. But then again, I think, how much better to receive it from your kids than an administrator too. Maybe that's a little bit more, inviting and less intimidating. So it's not an evaluation. It's more of like a growth opportunity, like you said. Yeah. So I think that's great. All right. Question 3.
And I'll just add to that last little part is, if we're expecting our students to persevere and grow and we challenge them, then why shouldn't we allow them to have the same expectation for us?
I love that.
Okay. Number 3, did I have control of my class? If you don't have control of your class, it's hard to learn in that classroom, right? So it needs to be established early with high expectations for each and every one of your students, that you're consistent with them. And I know we think we have eyes in the back of our head. We don't, okay? Yeah. That's not how it is. But trust me, your students see a lot more than you think. And sometimes you may miss things that they can catch and tell you. So this is just a good snapshot of, look, I'll tell you, usually there's like that one class that I have where when I teach it, I'm a little bit more like higher energy with that group. And as a result, we can get off task a little bit, and it can get a little bit louder. And some of my kids in that room that like it to be a little bit more on point, they'll hit me on this one. They'll be like, you need to get a little bit more control of our class. And I'm like, okay, that's granted. I see it. And it helps me to kind of realize when I'm teaching going forward, hey, we're getting to that point for that student. I need to make sure we get back on.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, good.
Did I keep you interested in my subject? Look, we all want to be interested in the classroom we walk into. Like I always say, when I get to go visit classrooms, when I walk in that classroom, I should instantly know what you're teaching.
Mm-hmm.
If I walk in that classroom, I have no idea what you teach. Like, how do I feel as a student when I walk in there that I'm engaged, I want to be there, and I'm excited about what I'm going to learn? When you walk in that classroom, it should be an environment that you're like, hey, this is really cool. I can't wait to find out what we're going to learn next. And this is where you get to see maybe it's time to try something new. Maybe you've been doing that same lesson or activity. You've printed that sheet off so many times it has those little black dots all over it.
I've seen them.
Because it's like gotten so used so much. Maybe it's time to break out that new lesson, try something, take a risk, and tell your students about it so that you can keep that excitement level up. And like I said, this generation of students, they're on a video for a moment. Once they lose interest, they're moving on. So we kind of have to keep our activities and everything engaging, but it allows you to see, are you keeping them interested in your class? Or maybe it's time to spice some things up.
I love that. Yeah. I always ask my phrase for teachers is like, what did you do to invite kids to learn that day? Like what was and sometimes it's subject related. Sometimes it's just like the way you teach. Sometimes it's just your passion about a subject. Like even if science is not my ultimate favorite subject, like you can hook me. Like when I visited your class the other day, I was like, I'm into it, and the kids were into it. And it was not because all of them are going to become scientists either, but it does teach them that like learning can be fun and like just the process of like problem solving and trying new things. Like those are skills that automatically hook kids in a subject. Those are engaging strategies that are not like, you don't have to decorate your room like Super Mario World, like we can find ways to really invite kids to learn, like what did you do to reach out to them? And again, is it being effective? Like, I love that. That's a great reflection.
And I'll say this, I've run into teachers a lot who like one of my favorite things to do is teach with intensity and enthusiasm. And I have teachers that say, well, you can't do that all the time. And I'm like, wait, what did you just say? Like every day can't be fun and games and all that. And I'm like, teaching should be fun for you, and your lessons you design should be fun for you to teach. Therefore, you get to come to work to every day and have fun teaching your students. And it baffles me. It's like, sure, there are some days where we have to come in and get some stuff done so that it prepares for what we're doing the next day. But still, you can do it in a reasonable, rational way where it's still kind of engaging and fun and gets these students excited.
Yeah, I love that.
Number 5, this is my Achilles heel. I'll go ahead and admit to it.
Yeah.
Were you given opportunities to relearn material that was difficult to you? This is the one that I always look at and I would score lowest on because one, sometimes I feel like my students don't know what accommodations and things that we're offering them. And maybe you're looking to see if your accommodations are effective with what you're doing in your classroom, right? But you also need to see is, are you giving students opportunities to relearn material that's difficult for them? So what that means is, am I providing lunch study opportunities? When I pull those kids aside and I'm working with them one-on-one while everybody else is working, do they realize that that's an opportunity for them to relearn? A lot of our students don't realize the things that we're doing in our classroom to help them relearn material that was difficult. Like taking the time to debrief the most commonly missed questions on the test and help students to see how you break down a question and then where their mistake came from so that going forward in the future, they don't fall for that same one. And they're learning good techniques for how to break things down and understand how something works. And I think this is where also as teachers, we feel so caught up in the standards that we have to cover, all the different things that we have to do as a teacher. Because trust me, if we could just teach, and we could conquer the whole world. But we have a lot of other things that we're being asked to do in the classroom. And I feel like this is an opportunity for you to see, are you catching and are you being effective with those students that are a little bit behind? What are you doing to get them caught up? And when you're doing those things, are they being effective? And do your students know that they can come and receive the benefits of those things as well?
Well, it's funny how like I'm just noticing question 1 and question 5 are so personal. Like both of those questions are very personalized questions, like individual students coming for help or like the individual relationship you have with students. And so you're couching all this other stuff within the classroom with that relationship piece, with that feedback piece, like you're talking about. But like this, we're always looking at growth. So like that's it. I talk about like your beliefs drive your behaviors. So like if you sincerely believe that the kids can learn the material and that again that you've taught them well and that they can comprehend it and perform or that they can show that, then we have to give them opportunities to do that. Like our behaviors have to drive that. So this one is tough. And again, it's time. Like it is time. Everything is time based. But I think your behaviors are driven by your beliefs. Like we have to make time, and it's hard. And I love hearing you say like lunch groups and before school and after school. And it is tough to fit it all in. And no one says, I say this quote a lot too, is the best thing about teaching is that it matters, and the hardest thing about teaching is that it matters every day. Like teaching is hard. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's not for people who just want to come in and be done at 3 p.m. Like number one, it's hard because you're using every minute you have, like you said, to make a difference. And then number two, it's like these kids weigh on me. Like I feel it, which is another episode for another day. But like we just take on all of these relationships that we have. And so when you have that, and you're also trying to plan engaging lessons, and you're also trying to have this relearning material piece, like, and you start weighing things, like I'm giving you a cop out, because to me, this is of the five, like this is the one I would say is the one that is the hardest to get to, because those other ones are so crucial too. But I do think, I love that you have this as like your growth opportunity, because it is like, it's hard to do. We know it's important. So we have to make ways to do it. And it's just, it's different. I mean, it is what it is. And so finding those unique ways, and I'm still on a mission. I'm still looking for that. So people who are listening, like if you can help Kevin and me both out with this, like I would love to see people who are using this like in a way that is still engaging. And you know what I mean? Like I love small groups and things like that for secondary world, but it's a new kind of learning opportunity for me as well. So I'm glad that you're being transparent with us and sharing that, because you are not the only one, for certain, right? Like that is something we all struggle with. All right. So these are these 5 questions, and I just want to think, like, is there anything else? We're kind of hitting our limit here, but like, is there, and I love this, like, I'm so excited. You can tell I get passionate, and when you have 2 people who are passionate about things, this is what happens. But like what other like big topics can you think of as far as feedback goes? Any like last parting wisdom or anything that you think people need to hear?
Well, I'll throw 3 things at you.
Yeah.
And the first thing is, I know how teachers are. You mentioned time is so important, and you'll see at the end of this, there's a link that you can go to where you can have access to the 5 questions, and it will make a copy for you. Because I know as a teacher, when I went to PD, when you gave me a slip of paper, it went into a file cabinet. You never saw it again. But this way, it's done for you. You click it, you plug in your name, and I'll tell you, do it one time. If you do it one time and you just trust, teach your kids, help, not hurt. When you read the feedback, especially on the 2 other questions, how can I improve as your teacher? Remember, write it in a helpful, not hurtful way. And what's something I'm doing that I need to keep doing? And the students type their answers below those 5 questions where they quickly mark. When you start reading those are the things that can fill your cup. Because a lot of times as teachers, we are so caught up in trying to fill our students' cups. You got to remember, you can't fill a cup that's empty. And so if you don't take the time to fill your cup by reading some of the things that your students have to say about the great things you're doing, trust me, I'll tell you right now, you don't get all the negative things that you think you're going to get. You don't.
Right.
But you do get some things that make you see things from a different perspective. And you go, I might need to change that, or I might think differently. And you get some of those. It's like, we need soda fountains that we can drink out of. And you're like, okay, yeah, I get it. But I think it's important to know that. Take the risk, right? If we're asking our students to do that, we got to represent the same thing. As you can see behind me on my door, I have my teacher expectations. This was created by my students. They tell me what I need to do and what my expectations for in their classroom and what they expect out of me. And I think we need to give our students that opportunity to have a say in our classroom. But you're still the leader. You're still the one that's in charge of the classroom, but you're growing through the feedback that you get from your students. The second thing that I would say is, I know we've struggled over the past few years as educators across our state with COVID and just everything that we've been doing. And I've went through that myself. But I can tell you there is another side to it. And one thing that I've kind of become a little bit passionate about, and I had a recent opportunity to present on, is whatever it takes. And, it's just transforming ourselves as educators, having the right attitude, choosing a get to versus a got to attitude, realizing that every day we walk in our classroom, we have the choice of our attitude, but our students don't have a choice of their circumstance, where they're coming from. And cum, which is the K, what means arise, to take a stance, to walk off your map and go somewhere beyond where the map says it has to end and take that risk. And then enthusiasm, like intensity, enthusiasm. Look, if you make your lessons fun for you to teach, your kids are going to want to be there, and it's contagious.
Yep.
And then students are going to go around talking about, I love this teacher, I love this class. And you're going to find joy. And those students that normally would have been a quiet student like I was, are going to be engaged in your lessons. They're going to want to come to class every day and make a difference. And the last is strength. We can't take everything on ourselves as teachers and think that we are alone in this fight, because we're not. There are many other teachers. Find a colleague, find a principal, find someone that you can talk to, especially when you're going through a tough time, because we need each other to be able to do this profession. Because it's important that we have foundations and cornerstones that we can lean on. But I hope that I thank you for allowing me to be on today and to be able to share this. My Facebook handle is @TeachToBelieve.
Look, here we go.
That's something that I feel like during this day and age where we're at is a lot of us are trying to find that same passion that we had as teachers if we've been teaching for a while. Those of you who are entering teaching for the very first time, you're finding who you are as a teacher and what you truly believe in. But it all comes back to our students. We're teaching to believe in our students, their situation, that no matter where they come from, they can be successful in life. And I was that kid. And I hope that what I've brought today will be beneficial. I appreciate you allowing me to be here. And look, 5 questions every teacher should ask.
Yeah.
You give it a shot. You will not stop when you go for it.
I love it, man. Yeah, you've inspired me. I have heard so many things, and I'm going to rewatch it and hear, because there were so many good things I wanted to write down as we were talking and not miss. So I would encourage some other teachers who are watching same thing. And I will say this too for Kevin and me as well. Like, we love to talk teaching. We love to talk education. We love to talk kids. Kevin actually has a classroom this year, which is even a plus up for me. So like, I'm throwing his name out there. Like, he would love for you to come visit his classroom.
Absolutely.
And I know it to be true. See, I knew it because we're the same person, right? So like, and I'll come with you, and like, we'll hang out together and go visit and see some of these things in action, because he actually does live and breathe what he says. Like, I really believe that the passion comes through, and I've enjoyed getting to know you, but he's not like, and I say this, and I don't want people to hear this about me as well. Like, we're not the best teachers in Alabama. Like, we know this about ourselves, but like, we are passionate about what we do. And like, we want to pump other people up to where like, we just like, this profession is so important and so critical for our kids. So like, anything we can do to say like, you know what, like, we represent tons of teachers who love what they do. So like you said, find that mentor, find that person who like find your people who like really empower you. And if you don't have those people, like, look right here, 2 people here. Yep. There we go. 2 people, me and him. Like, this is us. So like, definitely, like, we are here to encourage you and cheer you on. And so I hope you heard something today that just inspires you. And Kevin, I appreciate you being on here, and we'll talk to each other soon. All right.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.